Hey guys, my name is Jasmine and today we're going to be working on gradients and shading. So before we get started, I'm going to tell you guys what you need. You need at least 2 pieces of paper, an eraser, a drawing pencil, which is also a graphite pencil, a Sharpie, crayons, and colored pencils. I'm mostly going to be using a pencil for this, for showing you guys how you do this. But you guys can kind of switch it up and use any of the other utensils that I've mentioned. So, like I said, we're going to be working on gradients and shading, but let's get started with gradients. So you're going to take one of your pieces of paper and you're going to draw a rectangle. You can use whatever you want to draw your rectangle. It's going to be a long rectangle. Let's draw 3. 3 long rectangles. Just like that. And when I'm talking about gradients, I'm talking about something fading into another color. So I'm going to start with my pencil on one side, and you're going to see what I mean with this. I'm going to start out kind of dark, and then I'm going to go light. So doing it as dark as I can. And then the closer I get to the other side, it's going to start to kind of fade out. Which means I'm going to color a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter until it basically reaches just white. So just like that. And if you think it's too dark on one side, you can erase it best you can and try again. But this is a gradient. And when we're doing things like shading, this is what we're working with. We're basically working with this scale here. We're working on shadows being dark like this and things that are more so in light or more like this. So on the other ones here, I'm going to show you what you guys can do with a Sharpie. And this is basically our mark making. So if you do your lines closer together, it's all darker. And the closer you get to the end, and the more spaced out they are, the lighter it looks. So it's darker on this side and lighter on this side because of our lines are further apart. And then with a crayon, let's do green. You do the same thing like how you did with your pencil, and you can do this with your color pencils too. It's going to color pretty hard, and then the closer I get to the other side, I'm going to go lighter. These are examples of our gradients. So, thinking about what we just did with our gradients, how one side is darker and the other side is lighter, and there's kind of a middle ground with those, we're going to work on shading. So I'm going to grab my second piece of paper. I'm going to draw a couple circles with my pencil. And one thing to work on or to think about when you're doing shading is thinking of where your light source is coming from. So if you look at things in real life and you see how the light is hitting it, how the shadows are on it, that can kind of guide you and tell you how you should do your shading. So say for this one here, if my light source, which think of this little circle up here as my light source, if this light source is coming in this way, then all of my shadows are going to be on the bottom side of it. All my shadows are going to be over here. So over here is going to be darker. And if you want, you can draw like a little shadow on the ground if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that though. But thinking of our gradients, over here is going to be darker. So I'm going to make it darkest over here, and I'm going to follow the curve of my circle here. I'm going to make it into a sphere, so like a ball. So it looks like it has dimension to it, so it doesn't look flat. Think of my light source as hitting right here. So it's darker, and I'm working on getting it lighter and lighter. And you can do this with your crayons, your color pencils. With the pencil, it might be easiest because you can erase what you make too dark. Again, I'm following the shape I want to make. I'm making my lines curved. I'm not coloring up and down or side to side. My lines aren't straight, but they're curved. You can also smudge your lines. You can use your finger, even though your fingers kind of have oils on it, so it may not hold up too well. But you can use your finger. You can use these things called, I call them smudging sticks. They're basically like rolls of paper that you just use to smudge it, but you can also use your finger like this. And it makes all of your lines sort of blend together a little bit better. Go back and darken some areas. And I'm also going to erase where I imagine the light to be hitting it. So imagine my light going right there. I'm going to smudge around that a little bit. And that is the general idea of how you shade. Our light is hitting right here. It gets a little bit more gray, and then it gets a little bit more darker because there's no light over there, and that's where our shadow is. And then our actual shadow from where the light is hitting it would be about right there, following the same shape. It need to be dark. Something like that. Now with our other circle over here, I'm going to show you guys a colored pencil version. And you guys can use whatever color you want to use. If you guys want to also do a colored pencil, I'm going to use a dark blue. I'm going to do the same thing. My light source is going to come from the same place, just up here. It's hitting it about right here. So my shadow is going to be over here. Excuse me. I'm coloring a little bit darker, and then I'm going to go lighter and lighter, just like how we did with our gradients. And again, I am still following the shape of my ball here. Again, it's darkest at the bottom, and it is lightest where the light is hitting it, which is about right there. So, I'm going to do one more to show you guys another mark making example of how to make a gradient. So I'm going to use a pencil again. I make a third circle. Again, for sake of consistency, I'm going to keep my light source the same. It's going to be hitting about right there. That is where my light source is. I'm going to use a Sharpie to show you guys. And this is sort of like a stippling technique. So just like with our gradient where our lines are closer to one another, and when they get further and further away from each other, it looks lighter because there's less lines and more paper space. We're gonna do that, but with dots. So our shadow is gonna be down here again. Our shadow is down here. It's darkest down here. This lightest up here. So I'm gonna start making dots. My dots are gonna be closest together down at the bottom. And you can do this with a Sharpie, with a pencil, crayons, colored pencils, anything. But where our dots are the closest, it's gonna look more shadowed. And then the further away from our shadow, they get a little bit more spread out. And then the closer they get to the light source, there may be none, they may be very, very few. But that's how you can make shading with dots. Again, our dots are closest together where the shadow would be, which is the bottom here. And they get more and more spread out, closer to where the light is hitting our ball here. And that is how you do shading. And you guys can do this with different utensils, like how we use crayons and colored pencils, Sharpies, and a regular pencil. You guys can do it with those. You guys can do it with other media. You guys can work on how you make your gradients. You guys can use different colors, different techniques, like how we did just plain coloring, how we did dots here. You guys can also do it with line work, like how we did with this. The closer lines look darker, the further apart lines look lighter. And I hope you guys do just that with more shapes, more colors, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.